DayOneDollarZero, episode 7. It's been a long week. It's been a great week, but it's been a long week.
What's up, guys?
What's going on, Eli?
It's been a good week, man. Like you said,
a great week.
Super productive day today.
100%.
We got into some good stuff, man.
I think so.
Yeah.
We're gonna get this. I don't know how you get it so quick.
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No, it's not.
Well, dude, that's not good.
That's right.
We're gonna get this. We're gonna get this started. We're gonna get it shared live so everyone knows what's going on.
That's right. That's
so everybody can see it, and make sure we're all good. I'm surprised you gave up on
Fat's
on a Friday.
Fat's officially doing for this for us next time.
Is he?
Yeah, it's the last thing we need to be doing right when we start.
I mean, you're looking at me. I'm on my computer. That's okay.
I know.
But we're gonna copy and paste. We're gonna make sure it's up on the page.
There's some guy in his car right now driving to work at like 5:30 a.m. Like, all right, guys, come on,
sir, the page.
It's like, Garrett.
Hey, it's that same guy that flipped me off today. Fucking
Yeah,
guy.
that was funny. That was
Dude,
funny.
so dramatic.
Yeah, there's a lot of dramatic drivers out there, man.
We're gonna talk about that a little bit today because we're gonna talk about episode 7 is gonna be culture, but we're gonna elaborate a little bit on that. As in, I think it's something that's missing. And I don't want to say corporate America. It's not that it's corporate America. I just think it's missing in business. But we want to talk about how it's effective in business, how to build it before it can become effective, and then how that translates into your personal life and just, how you choose to be a dad or how you choose to be a husband or a wife. And I'm big on that. A little bit of an analogy is they're kind of going away from youngsters playing like dual sports. A lot of it is baseball year round, or football, year round, and they're missing some of what you carry over from other sports,
right?
And I think it's super important. But the same thing when it comes to like business or how you approach life, I think we've talked about this before. If I'm super patient or whatever I'm doing for my clients, but then I come home and I'm helping my daughter with homework, and after 10 minutes I'm not very patient and I'm frustrated. Is that fair?
Not good.
So a lot of things can kind of correlate and they kind of weave themselves together as far as how you're approaching your business, excuse me, and how you're approaching your personal life. But I think it's because everything kind of derives from who you are as a person.
Yeah, and the reason I'm excited to talk about this because it's one of the most talked about topics in business, and every company talks culture. However, very, very, very few people actually know what the hell it is, how it's applied, or what it even is. Like, they just don't even know what it is, but they talk about it all the time, and very few people do it at all.
100%. And remind me of this, because as we get through this conversation today, I want to be reminded. I want to talk on subculture.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh,
yeah,
we're gonna come at you.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about subculture today, so I'm gonna write that down.
And I think jumping into this topic, man, a lot of people out there in they're leaders and they don't even know it. And I think a lot of people, if they realize that they're in a leadership position, like you mentioned families earlier, if you're a parent, mom, dad, whatever, if you're a parent, you're a leader. And if you're not looking at your family's culture and the way that you're acting as a leader, you're in trouble.
It's harder.
Yeah.
And here's my short opinion on that before we kind of reverse a little bit and then, and officially get started on this. But you don't have a choice. You decide to have a kid. You decide to have children, you decide to be a husband, whatever it may be, you decide to be a wife. Like, that role is now on you. You know what I mean? And hey, like it or not, you're a leader. This isn't your corporate America piece. This isn't being a part of the military, not being proficient, and you step down and someone steps up. Nope, you're dad. And even if you want to step down, I think kiddo wants you to be a dad. We're not going to get into divorces. We're not going to get into people who decide not to raise their kids. Pieces of shit is how I usually leave that there.
Right,
so if you're a piece of shit, probably don't listen to our podcast. So I want to make sure we stay in a certain scope because there are people out there, and there's always anomalies. Well, what about people that don't even know they have a kid? Okay, I'm not talking about that. Like, I want to stay within the scope of you're fully coherent that you have a family and you're in some role, and maybe you just got to adjust your mindset on how you approach it. Because a lot of times I think just being in the right state of mind when you're driving home from work, and understanding your role, or at least being aware of your role,
right,
lets you act better once you get there.
Right.
But a lot of times we kind of just go through our days a little lackadaisic, a little go through the motion versus understanding what hat we got to put on at that moment,
right,
and then being that,
right,
and being the best at it we can. And I think if we have those little adjustments, it's there, and I think culture is, man, you have broad, so you have like the Marine Corps, right? Honor, courage, commitment, huge. Marines die for that, right? But within that culture, you have subculture, as in the guys immediately around each other and how they're commingling together and who's stepping up as leader and who's doing things. Or
not like the leaders per se, but
all leaders involved, but just like your direct. So let me give you an example as we kind of launch this thing. Like we own our brokerage team through Berkshire Hathaway.
Right.
So Berkshire Hathaway has their
shout out to Warren Buffett.
Warren, what up, dude? Enjoy that McMuffin, bruh. And I wonder if he does jiu-jitsu.
No.
Bet we could get him to.
No. No.
Bet he could pay for the most expensive coach and get decent.
Dude, you ever
bet he could be like purple belt.
You ever see how thin his skin is? Like he's got that super old people thin skin.
He's old. What do you mean he's got the old people skin? Like he's fucking
that's
old.
What I'm saying. You go to grab that, it's gonna like rip off or something.
Unless he's in the senior league. If there was one.
He might be. There's some badass seniors though.
True. But back on topic.
Yeah.
The Marine Corps, and then how I talk about that, and then you've got like 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and you've got Kilo Company, and then you've got 3rd Squad. You continue to grow down into these subcultures where people are directly correlated together, correct? So that's like it's like Berkshire Hathaway. Its core values and its mission statement, cool. But then Genesis Home Team also has its own identity.
Gotcha.
And before that, you have Innovative Real Estate has their identity, correct? And then even down one more, Genesis Home Team. And the reason why that's important is how many people come into work every day and they're affected by Warren Buffett? 0. We respect him, nothing against him, but it's almost unrelatable. And even though you're going to try to live up to some core values or try to stay in tune within the color of their business and how they want to conduct business, there's no effect. There's no personal connection. There's no accountability. You've got to have there's more direct, which is sometimes what I think can be more important, which is your subculture, which is Genesis Home Team and the 12 people around each other every single day and the accountability and the culture there.
Got it.
Super important. Even in like boot camp. I remember like boot camp, School of Infantry, man. I need some whiskey for this one. We got in trouble one time. And I just remember like the instructors. I knew we were in trouble. I can't remember what it was for. But I remember the instructors, when we got to breakfast, they said, eat. You don't eat. Dude, like in boot camp, School of Infantry, like, dude, you're go, go, go. It had to have been boot camp. And I just remember them saying, eat. Okay. I'm like, oh, man. Dude, so in boot camp, man, everything is like go, go, go. I was throwing yogurt on bread and just eating that. Because you're just go, 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 man. It's a culture shock. It's physical. It's mental. You know, I had a drill instructor one time, man, wake me up. He's a cool guy. Wake me up, kind of put me in a little bit of a headlock in the top bunk and just literally, man, he just said, you think you can sleep? And he just walked off.
Right.
That was it. There was no punchline. That was it. I wasn't even in trouble. Shit like that, right? Yep. Like they just fuck with you, man, and they're trying to break you mentally and build you back up and all that cool stuff, right? Well, they never give you time to eat. You gotta be super effective. So when they're like eat, like
you're like, what is this?
What the fuck's going on? And guys try to not eat, like, nope, sit down, eat, you know. And okay, dude, that goes on all day. We go back out, we're drilling, we're doing our rifle stuff, we're doing our physical fitness, we're doing obstacle courses. Lunch comes around. No, sit down, eat, right? And you're like, dude, at that point, then the smirks and they're looking at you like, dude, you just know it. And they make sure everybody's eating, dude. Okay, cool. You know, we do more stuff for the rest of the day. Everybody's trying their ass off, right? My daughter does the same thing when mommy's mad, right? And she's not sure if I've heard or not. So like, she's super lovey and great at everything when I get home, and I can tell. Even if I haven't heard, I know, right? Evening chow comes around. Eat more, right? Dude, fucked up. So we get back to the squad bay, and we still don't know what happened. I don't know if somebody pissed himself, somebody got something bad in the mail. To this day, dude, might be my bad memory. I still don't know what got us in trouble. But after evening chow, we go back to the squad bay. Everybody is standing on line, and they're like, get your fucking canteens out. All right. So everybody grabs their 2 canteens, fill them up. So we go to the bathroom, fill them up with sink water. Good old SoCal sink water, right? All right, good to go. Drink. And they start counting down from 100. All belligerent, right? 199, 187, right, dude? Yeah. And you got to be done. Excuse me, it was 1 canteen.
Okay.
You got to be done, and you got to put it up over your head and show that it's empty before 100. Everybody did it. Cool. All right, get back in there, fill them up. You're like, what? So you get back in there and you fill them up. You come back out. You stand by your bunk. Everybody's standing online in the squad bay. Drink. And they count down from 100 again. And that happened for 3 or 4 canteens.
Oh.
Scientifically, your body can only hold so much.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining like the dun 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 dun. We were talking about that today. Dun 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 dun. Dude, it's only a matter of time before somebody can't hold their water with so much food in you from that day. And mind you, now we must have been 4 or 5 weeks in. I'm thinking, and we weren't used to getting that much food. Mm-hmm. And dude, everybody's standing there. I can't remember. I think it was our scribe. He looked like a weirdo too. No disrespect if you're listening out there, scribe. He
or other weirdos.
Dude, 1 or 2 guys start yakking, and that's what kicks it off. Once you see somebody yak, everybody's fucking yakking, right? And at that point, the entire squad bay was covered with food and slush and water. And then they're throwing out. They have us unlock. That's what it was. Somebody left their Foot Locker unlocked the night prior. So everybody's throwing there. Like we had to throw our shit out on the floor, and then we had to clean it all up. And dude, they were parading around like. And then the drill instructors just think that shit's hilarious.
Yeah.
Right? And they're fucking parading around with our guide on, and they're marching around like it's fucking Iwo Jima, dude. And then we had to like clean the entire squad bay the entire night. Your shit's a mess. It's terrible. It's terrible. Here's my deal. Everyone in that squad bay was in it together. No one knew which Foot Locker. They didn't grab somebody up and single somebody out. So nobody knew whose Foot Locker was left unlocked. And dude, you're running around so crazy in boot camp. It might have been yours. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for you to talk shit. I'm like, I know mine wasn't unlocked. No, you fucking don't, right? He's just so busy. And they didn't say whose it was. It didn't fucking matter, right? And dude, everybody got thrashed that day. And then everybody had to clean everything up that day. But my point is, right, beyond being disgusting, my point, man, was it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. We all chose to join the Marine Corps. You were all assigned and put into the squad bay and put into this platoon together to work through boot camp together. And from day one in the Marine Corps, man, it's very clear. You're not going to do anything on your own, right? Like they've had professional boxers go to boot camp and get fucked because they couldn't do it, man. And they were trying to alienate themselves. Coming from a very individual sport, like I get it, you're going to fall back on that. But the bottom line was day one, man, you're not doing anything by yourself. And I went during a time of war and I had 3 infantry boot camp drill instructors, and we had a motor T guy, and super hard on us. But literally, man, from day one, dude, you're not doing anything on your own. And if you're that kind of guy, you're going to get people hurt or get people killed and whatever it may be. But the fact that we were all in that together and didn't have a choice, it kind of forced us to work past that point of like mental break, but then also understand what really matters and what doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And here's the deal. We all got fucked up. It didn't matter, dude, whose Foot Locker was unlocked. And everybody trying to bicker and whose was unlocked. I know mine was locked. Like, that doesn't last long because you get like 30 people yelling at that one dude. Shut the fuck up, bro. We have 3 feet of water in this squad bay full of chicken noodle soup and yogurt and bread. And we only have so much time to have this clean. And that next morning you're getting up and boot camp continues. So you just didn't have time for that. And I think that's a benefit depending on the type of leadership you have in boot camp. And it sounds like a terrible, non-appropriate, non-friendly situation, but it really teaches you to a certain level, man. And I'm sure part of it was like they just had fun fucking us up. But we were all together on that. Yeah. So this is how, it's important to understand that. And dude, when guys are training for combat and training for warfare, you're great at it, cool. Well, what if you're the one getting shot at?
One guy's decision can affect everybody.
But here, not only that, but what if you're the guy getting shot at? Well, now, no matter how great you are at something, you can't go do that. Other guys got to get you out of that hot zone, correct? Or even worse, man, what if you get shot in the fucking grape and you're dead?
Yep.
Now what? Now these guys got to survive the entire deployment, 100 more firefights, whatever they get into, and they got to be proficient. And it sucks that you're dead, but it is what it is. And these guys got to get everybody else home. And now someone below you in that squad has to step up and then be that squad leader and be proficient. Which is exactly why if you didn't train your Marines, if you were the guru, if you're not training people to be better, you have a problem. Mm-hmm. Well, we've kind of bred that down into our culture with Genesis Home Team and making sure that we're breeding thinkers. But, this is going to kind of lead me to our topic of what I want to talk about, because I think everybody's in agreement, culture, right? But it's kind of gimmicky, and I've heard a lot. I don't know about you, but I've heard a lot of people ask me, you know, and I was talking to some of the guys, the guys, you know, the upper echelon guys for Berkshire and Colorado. You know, when people talk about like, what are your core values? I say, I don't know. Or like, oh, well, what's your mission statement?
I hear that question a lot.
And they're always talking about like, well, like, what is it? Is it honesty? Is it integrity? Motherfucker, if you're a liar, you're out of here.
Yeah.
You're out of here. Dude, these are standards, okay? Like honesty, integrity. Those aren't core values. Listen, man, you can't be falling on your sword for that. Honor, courage, and commitment. Those can also sound cliche, but it's what was built around those. And that's what I'm talking about, because from boot camp on, at the most simplistic level, they gave you perspective on how deep those run.
Right.
So for us, they're not cliche.
How do they do that? How do they drive those core values into you guys?
They fuck you up, dude. They fuck you. You don't get away with anything. And if you do something, they punish the masses. You want to sneak peanut butter back into your bunk at night? You want to put it in your pocket from the chow hall because you're hungry at night and you want a little peanut butter snack at night? Or you want to, like, you know, whatever you're doing with that peanut butter at night? Dude, if they find it, they literally thrash everyone. And sometimes they don't even thrash you. They make you watch.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with like mafia stuff, dude. Where like they don't kill you, they kill your family, then they make you still work for them. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Right.
Not condoning
culture there too. Different kind of culture.
A different kind of culture.
Right.
There's morals involved here too. But the biggest thing that they get across to you through the Marine Corps is especially at your basic level, man, you know, from boot camp on, is how your actions affect others and how your decisions matter.
Right.
Because your decisions, they're going to affect a lot of people. And that could be applied to combat, could be applied to a lot of things. It can also be applied to your family. Like, right? Like I affect my kids with every decision that I make. And what people need to understand is your decisions matter more than you realize. And the effect of your decisions have a bigger impact than you realize. And a lot of times it can be super negative. I think a lot of times in society, and this is just from my perspective, people go through the motions and they think if they don't do it, someone else will.
So question for you, and I'm excited we're doing this podcast because this is something that I'm genuinely curious about, and I love the idea of culture, and I love, you know, we don't have our core values down right now, but that's intentional. But I do love the culture that we've developed. So I'm excited to ask you some questions just as far as your thought process behind why you do some of the things you do on the team. So like in the Marines or military, they're hard as fuck on you guys. They have no choice. I mean, you can't leave, right? You're in. I mean, maybe you can or something, but for the most part,
we had a couple guys kiss in the bathroom because of, you know, like if you were back then, it was like don't ask, don't tell. So like if you were openly gay, they would kick you out. And some guys that were kind of breaking, they tried to kiss in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this whole. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get political. I don't want to get in trouble saying some shit.
I mean, no different than you and I.
They got laughed at. We all knew they weren't gay. They stayed, but it's just a sign of weakness. And I'm going to go one step further, man. Not everybody has an amazing time in the Marine Corps.
Right.
Not everybody has incredible leadership in the. So a lot of my experience is by chance the leadership that I was dealt when I got in, from boot camp to School of Infantry to anything I ever did in the Marine Corps. I didn't choose my leadership, right? Like I worked at as best as I could, and I got attached to some cool units, but by chance I had some incredible leaders. That's not everyone's experience, and this is why subculture is so important, because no matter what the Marine Corps wants to put out, you got to remember, man, it's up to drill instructors, it's up to, you know, School of Infantry leaders, it's up to any other MOS school leaders, it's up to your units, squad leaders and platoon leaders. It's up to them to not only adhere and carry, you know, those core values, but they've also got to like hold and create a standard and proficiency as a leader. And that doesn't always happen. And this is where guys get derailed. And this is where guys have a terrible time in the Marine Corps, a terrible time in the military, or it was neutral and no one cared and they checked the fucking box and they didn't really realize where their impact was. And then that subculture failed them. But I mean, that's why we're so hard on this. Like, I don't talk Warren Buffett every day. We talk about Genesis Home Team because that's what we can relate to. But that's where you and I have influence.
Well, and so in a company, so people, you know, you can be super hard on the Marines and they can't leave. They're there. Whatever kind of experience they have is their experience.
Yep.
But in a company, when people can walk away anytime they want, when you're initially
Kind of.
building that, I mean, yeah, they can. They
People
don't
get
need to come in
obligated
tomorrow.
but they got health insurance. They get out. They get imprisoned by a paycheck.
Yeah.
So you're right. They have the freedom to do so, but
Well, and if they have
not as much as we might think.
right, so how do you instill that same type of culture and still be hard on people, but also keep them motivated and moving forward in the sense that they're not just going to want to leave tomorrow because someone's an asshole in their eyes or something?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you and I were doing our thing and kicking ass, and we had a lot of things that we thought we were good at.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is whatever field you're in, like, are you good at it? Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. We're good at something. Cool. Second thing that's got to go on to that. Is it sustainable? And I've talked about this before. So I'm just going to use real estate because that's what we do. Are you getting a lot of deals because family members happen to be selling right now and you get 6 deals in 90 days and you're on top of the world and wow, you're 6 months in and you've done 9 deals. In the back of your head, do you know, like, well, family was hooking me up and you're not sure how your second year's going to go,
right?
Which means, like, even though you were kicking ass and you're good at some things, it might not be sustainable. So first and foremost is, are you successful at it yourself? All right. Like, you get right. If you're leading from the front, you got to be successful at it yourself. Secondly, is what you're successful at sustainable? So is it sustainable for you? Is it something that is generating business? You're not lucky from a couple family members.
Right.
Third thing, can you duplicate it? As in, whatever you're doing, can you teach that to others to make them better?
Okay.
That's your first piece, right? So before you even go in and worry about the culture you want to build or think that you want to build with a team, you got to make sure that as a leader, you have value. Because if you're leading from the front and you add value to someone's being, you're a lot further than most.
Right. Okay.
And that value is huge, right?
So you've got to have that baseline level of proficiency and respect. Baseline.
Value.
Right.
Not
and
just
value.
respect, right? Some people respect people blindly.
Right. But the respect by showing, hey, you know what you're doing. You've applied it. You know what you're
I'm
doing.
glad
you
you
have
use the
proven
word
success.
Well, I'm glad you use the word respect, because when I see the word respect, before I'm looking at people on our team to respect me and having that respect, I'm giving it. But I'm giving it through that value. Like, I'm respecting you. Like, if you've chosen to be on this team and you're trusting us with providing value, I'm going to respect the shit out of you by answering that phone call.
Gotcha.
Or doing whatever we have to do through mentoring and through coaching and providing material and providing value.
Yep.
So I'm giving that respect. I'm giving that trust. I'm giving that value very first, right? Another thing that goes into this, because we've let people go before, don't be a piece of shit. Not that and I'm using that loosely. I don't think anybody we've ever let go is just a flat out piece of shit. But we've had one that we talked about recently, that was screwing a client on a deal, and then he ended up making barely any money, and a managing broker had to take over because of his style, we'll call it, of communication and proficiency and respect toward other agents and the clients. And it was not good. And you're putting other priorities first versus those families. So I think what you look for when you're hiring people is like-minded people, as in, that they do seem honest. They're realistic with their goals and what they want to achieve. They're open-minded and they want to learn.
That's a huge part right there.
They have to.
Huge part.
And here's what's even bigger. They're a team player.
Right.
If I need something from the team, if another teammate needs something from them, they're looking at putting the team first ahead of their own lessons, which in reality, if you do, you'll learn a ton and you get exposed to a lot of people. Because if I'm putting you first and you're putting me first, guess what? We're taken care of. And that's the same thing when we're looking at military and patrolling through, urban warfare combat and things like that.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't see, if I'm on the left side of the street, I can't see the third story window. I'm directly below it, but I can see across the street. But that means I got to turn my back to that. And I got to watch this side of the street. And then you're going to turn your back to your side of the street and you're going to watch mine. And there's a lot of trust that goes into that. But this is where just seeing if people have their priorities straight and if they're good people. In addition to that, you might have an ideology of like who you are or what your team could be, but you have no one on the team. So for me, how are you writing your core values and how are you writing your mission statement before anything has happened? For us, and for me, it was hiring what I felt were good people and then providing value to them and then taking that year and a half of seeing what's becoming successful and then do a year in review and go, okay, what's working? What's making us successful? What have we done? Who have we gotten rid of? And then going, okay, out of everything that's been making us successful, what's at the core of it?
Right. Interesting.
You're going to find your core values.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who have we gotten rid of? Why?
I like that.
Okay. Right. So, okay, we've gotten rid of a couple people.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Everyone else has stayed. Why? Where are their numbers? Where's their progress? Where's their life at? Not just their sales. Where's their personal life at? Where's their head at? Where have they gained psychologically? Where have they gained professionally? Where are they at? Why? And then anyone that we had join the team later on after the first big group, where are they at? And how did that first group affect the second group as in momentum? Because our second group caught on very quickly. The first group was like the tip of the spear. The second group gets to not only listen and learn from us, they have other agents ahead of them on the team that are cranking, that are doing a lot, that are doing, and those and people that are doing well from the team are bigger validation of our success than me running my mouth.
That's true.
Right? There's that momentum, there's that belief as they come in. So then you're looking at that and you're putting it all together and you've got to reverse engineer it once you have enough of your own data and go, okay, what's at the core of this? You're going to find your core values.
Right.
Because you're going to see out of everyone from these different walks of life, what's at the most core of every individual here that made us a team and made us successful?
That's such a good point, dude.
Right?
Because people are trying to, you're exactly right. They're trying to develop this thing, which can only be developed after the thing is developed.
Dude, like you can't put the cart in front of the horse kind of thing. Right. Cliche, but it's true.
Dude, putting it that way, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that's why a lot of companies struggle with culture, because they do exactly what you just said. They try and develop the culture, and then they grow the team, however the fuck they're going to grow the team, and totally forget about their culture, but it sticks on the plaque on their windows over the conference room or some bullshit like that.
Right. And your culture is your team. It is your people. It's not just you and I, man.
Right.
Your culture is your team. It's how they're acting, who they are, and how they come together. And then through your own data and your own success, because what if you're putting that cart in front of the horse day one and you're trying to figure out these core values or whatever it may be, and you suck for 5 years? Are your core values off? Or are you so fixed on these 3 core values that you're not paying attention to the individuals that you're hiring and making it right or firing? Like there's a reason why you and I do our own deals. And I've said this, man, it's leverage, right? There's a reason why lenders don't buy us leads, right? We're going to go procure our own buyers, our own sellers. Leverage. I'm not going to owe a lender anything. Right. We've seen that. We've dabbled in it. We, to entertain some of our early clients or early agents just to get some of our own data. But we know wholeheartedly where that leads. And we know how to procure buyers and sellers, but they're ours. We don't owe anybody anything for that. Right. Now, it goes one step further. If you and I are doing our off-market stuff, doing investment stuff, doing traditional sells and buys on the MLS stuff, and we're providing for our families through our own ability of being that tactician, I don't need anyone on the team, which means if I got an asshole, hypothetically, right? But he's doing 20 deals a year, 30 deals a year. Well, now, if I need his money to provide for my family, well, now my decision-making ability is altered, and I'm putting other priorities in front of what people call their core values. You're putting this in front of what you should be weighing your decisions on. And we're going to get into that later on in the podcast as well. Versus, hey, man, you're a Cancer. Like you're doing this and now your shit doesn't sink or whatever it may be. And now this is how you're toxic toward the team. Dude, I don't care if you're doing 100 deals. I'm not sacrificing the people.
And your team sees that, man.
Your team sees it.
They see it if you keep him. They see it if you cut him.
And if you keep a guy who's Cancer or keep a girl who's Cancer, you might lose your good ones because they're tired of that person. But no one's bigger than the institution. Not even me. And it has to be that way, man, in order to have that integrity. And when you're going through that, if you have the leverage, then that means people's honesty and their integrity and their coachability and their work ethic and their ability to be a team player, now that starts to bloom. Once that starts to bloom with everyone, and we're starting to play that varsity ball, right? And things are flowing and things are making sense, now you've got enough momentum and you've got enough consistency where you're going to be able to go back and really figure out, like, what are our core values? Right. Man, we got a Spanish-speaking agent. We're going to be building a team under her that's still within our team. And her being Hispanic and being bilingual and coming from her background, right, and just crushing, you don't think she should contribute to the culture? You don't think she should have an opinion of what our core values are? You're damn right. Now, when you're 500 employees deep, you probably have your core values by then. I don't mean that They just never come about because everybody has a say. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is your first core, pun intended, your first core group that becomes successful, that helps forge everything into place, that really gives you that momentum and that direction, they should have a say in what those core values were collectively, because they were literally the fucking people who grew it with you.
Well, and they feel a part. They feel a part of something that way, dude.
They are
like
a part of it.
Everybody. You know, when you go back thousands of years and you look at how, I mean, we come from a tribe. You know, we're tribes people. Like, people need people around them. That's why, you know, we do. That's why social media is what it is, because it's more or less a tribe for people. We've segregated ourselves and we're individuals in our homes for the most part now. And I think social media just pops off because it makes people feel like they're part of a tribe. And when people can tell how much you care, and then they get to a level of proficiency, and then you start passing some responsibility onto them and they feel part of something, talk about your core. I think that goes down to your DNA, man, as far as just people feeling like they belong with their tribe.
And people are vulnerable.
Yeah.
We're all vulnerable. We all have that level of where we look. Right. So a lot of times loudmouths, and I'm a loudmouth, don't get me wrong, but I try to stay in my lane with it, right? But a lot of times when everyone's kind of looking for direction, whoever's kind of speaking up like they got it figured out, they're going to follow and trace. And you have a lot of people that have maybe never done leadership, especially at a high level where there's lives at stake. Like, there's a lot you learn from that, you know. And you think, like, if you're writing a book or if you're reading a book and you're trying to go, or if you're making some shit up and you're trying to go chronological, well, one would think that your core values and your mission statement comes first. And I'm not saying companies have never been successful doing that first. I'm not going to get into that because I'm sure there's room for debate. However, for us, right, and for being genuine, like, what really is down to the core, man, it's like those people that, so you and I were successful. You and I were sustainable. You and I could duplicate our model.
Right.
But everyone that's coming within that first year, there's going to be some growing pains, and there's going to be some things that fluctuate in what's working, what's not working. Principles, honesty, integrity, hardworking, coachability, putting a team first. I have a hard time calling those core values. I think those are great qualities that one needs. But if every one of our agent can start mastering those, and then everyone is working on all cylinders with those 5 great tools, I think now that's, like, collectively that becomes a big enough drill to really get down into the core of the earth, really get down into the core of what, like, for the Marine Corps, honor, courage, commitment. The subculture of the Marines that pass that down to me, you understand the level of how those feel. Mm-hmm. But if the Marine Corps was treated like a corporate America and they were just put on a board, they would be any other core value, period, right? So, again, now we've talked about this culture, you know, and just, you know, being proficient and being successful at whatever you think you're going to go teach, making sure it's sustainable. Like, you actually have a process within yourself. You're not just shooting from the hip. There's a lot of talented people that shoot from the hip and awesome, right? Doesn't mean that you can then duplicate that, right? And does that make sense? So, again, being successful at what you're leading or what you want to lead, making sure that whatever that model is sustainable. Thirdly, making sure that you duplicate that. And then I guess fourthly is making sure that people have those tools to be successful and reverse engineering it and then finding those core values. But this is where and we can talk about it later, but this is where I really get into subculture. Because, again, it's not that you and I don't adhere to Berkshire core values and Berkshire principle. Of course, man. And a lot of it's just like letter of the law. I'm also okay with that because there's room for interpretation. But, again, man, the reason why, especially like with bigger businesses, the reason why subculture is so important is because you want someone to come in every day and have something to be to relate to and something to be accountable to. Like, one of the biggest things that hit me in boot camp, we were going through, you know, like third phase, and we were going through like that final phase, man, and where you're not sleeping and all that stuff. I can't even remember what it was called. I'm sure Marines are shitting on me right now. Oh, the Crucible. Ah, gotcha. Motherfuckers. I know there's a couple of Marines out there like, whoa, bro, you don't remember that? Like, I remember it. And again, it's just boot camp. It's nothing crazy. It was crazy enough. But when you're going through the Crucible, you don't sleep for 3 days. They give you like 1 MRE. You got to ration it out, and they keep you up and all that. And then at the end of it, you get your Eagle Globe and Anchor. And it's really cool. But during those 3 days, you have a ton. You're hiking a ton, and as you hike, you're going and you stop somewhere, and you have like an obstacle to get over.
Okay.
And if you're not utilizing the entire team, you just won't pass that. Like you literally need an entire squad to pass these obstacles. But what's really cool is as you get to those stations, they read off a Medal of Honor recipient, right? Like they name a station after a Marine.
Got it.
Even though I was in, man, like late 04, 05 era, OIF-1 had already happened. Like, so your first invasion of Iraq and things like that had already happened. You already had a ton of like heroes from the Marine Corps that were my age, my generation, my war that I was walking into when I went to the Marine Corps. No disrespect to World War II Marines.
Right.
No disrespect to World War I Marines. No, not at all.
But you were part of this, right?
But however, reading something that was like 6 months ago is huge. It's relatable. So again, even at a boot camp level, those drill instructors created a subculture of their interpretation of what the Marine Corps meant to them. And they had to translate it, almost like the Bible, dude. Right? Like they had to translate what the Marine Corps meant to them in their era, in their moment, during their times of combat, during their times of passing that torch down and making Marines. They're making fucking Marines, man. Like that's something that's super, super serious in the Marine Corps. They had to interpret that how they speak, correct? And then you get to a unit, you get to your first unit or whatever it may be. Every unit, down to every squad of Marines, you have Marine Corps leaders, correct? Like through that entire chain of command, through the entire Marine Corps, you have that chain of command of leaders that adhere to Marine Corps values. They adhere to Marine Corps core values. However, on a daily basis, they have to adhere to it, but also translate and then sustain Marines to a certain level of what they think is, not only the Marine Corps thinks is proficient, but what they think is proficient. And they've got to translate core value, which is going to translate into, like, what does that mean to you? Like, what if one of your squad leaders just got back from Iraq and some of his friends passed away? What do you think the Marine Corps means to him? Oh, and you don't want to wake up early to fucking go for a run? You don't want to work out because it's Monday morning and you were drunk last night? But I had 2 Marines pass away, giving their life for other Marines to even let you have an opportunity to get up, you bitch.
Right.
Okay, so not that I'm saying everything in the Marine Corps was pure. I'm not saying that. But imagine that sergeant's or that corporal's perspective on what the Marine Corps means for him, how he's translating it to younger Marines to make sure they adhere to those core values and they continue. You know, and when I was getting down the Marine Corps, man, I had a Gunny, super great guy, Gunny Scott. A whole podcast could be on Gunny Scott. He's a phenomenal human being. And he said, man, when I was getting out, you know, and sometimes you're wondering if you should get out or not. And like when that day comes and you're kind of hesitating, and he kind of made me laugh and patted me on the shoulder. And he goes, Grimes, here's the deal, man. If great Marines don't get out, no one knows we're great. Like there's still power behind taking who you are as a Marine and then passing that message back into the civilian world to enlighten people on what we're all about, to encourage people to maybe be a part of the Marine Corps one day and be a part of something that's bigger than themselves at the highest level possible of commitment and sacrifice to team.
So let me ask you about that, because that's literally exactly what you're doing right now. And you're
Correct.
taking your Marine experience and you're putting your interpretation of it and bringing that to civilian world and our team. And just to give, you know, you guys a little insight as far as like kind of what it's like on the Genesis home team. Like you guys, I'm sure you have a really good idea about Will right now, you know, and kind of how he is, but there's an extremely high level of accountability, expectation, but that expectation isn't necessarily an expectation of you to perform extremely well, but expectation of do your fucking best and ask if you don't know how to do something. And like you said, don't be a piece of shit. You know, we encourage all the time people to come to us. You don't have to be perfect. If you know what you're doing, come to us and ask. But Will's hard on people. But you're also really, you know, people can tell that you care a lot and that comes from a really good place. So my first question is, how do you put that underlying extreme level of care, you know, kind of underneath that extreme level of accountability and being hard on people?
Yep. Let's stay right there for a sec, because you've got two. If you got 2 questions, so first question of how you put that extreme care. This is because I have an opportunity, right? So I have friends, personal friends of mine that passed away, either from suicide or passed away during combat operations. And it took me a while to swallow it and make sure that I'm effective, but I have an opportunity. And man, what's great about the Marine Corps is not only like my guys that are still here, still present. So either in the Marine Corps or they ventured off into entrepreneurship or whatever they're doing, but they're alive and they've transitioned out. I still know that those guys pay attention. And man, guys that pass away, you kind of feel like they're still around, and you kind of feel like at the end of your day or at night, like, look, man, have I done all I can to influence? Like, I don't control shit, right? But have I done everything that I can to influence every situation possible? And that really, I don't know if it sounds cliche. I don't know. I don't care. It's because it's not cliche for me. But man, like we talk about Captain Shantosh, the other day, and I'm just even fortunate. It's not Captain Shantosh, by the way. He was higher than ranked than that by the time he retired after 20 years. And now we know him as Brian Shantosh, right? And he likes to be called Tosh. And it's really cool. I knew him for a blink of an eye in the Marine Corps, but everyone knew who he was, man. He's a legend. But I'm super fortunate to get to know him as Tosh because there's a lot to him outside of the Marine Corps. I love making that dude proud. Not because it like fills a void. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people are people pleasers to fill a void. I'm a people pleaser to people who I consider my peers or were my leadership when I was in, to have them say, good fucking job. Or, hey, Grimes, he's a good one. Hey, he's legit. Respect from those guys means most. And I might talk to that guy, man, every couple. I call his ass, he never answers. That's because I talk too much. And he probably doesn't have Tosh. Hey,
like,
Tosh, if you're listening,
talk to this dude.
I'm not even disrespecting, dude. I get it. If I call you, you're right, man. You're on the hook for 20 minutes. And Tosh, I still haven't like played you. He loves video games. His son's playing video games, and Fat and I are supposed to be playing that dude in Call of Duty on Xbox. We had PlayStations. My lady plays, and we still haven't played him. So he's probably cold shouldering me for that too. And I talk too much. But he sent me a text the other day, and he goes, "Hey, that comment you make about why you take the shot at the buzzer, like I got asked by someone that I mentor that mentors me as well. And they asked me like, hey, like, are you the kind of guy that takes the last shot of the game? Like, are you confident and do you have enough of that in you to like, to overcome that and to do that? And I'm like, yeah, man, that is so me, but it's for nothing of what you're saying. I remember, the guy we were talking to, he asked, I said, man, I take that shot I take the last shot of the game, or I take that shot at the buzzer because I can shoulder that loss, right? Like the responsibility behind the team trusting in me to do my best and the team trusting in me and let's keep it to sports, right? So it's relatable. The team trusting in me to take every single rep in practice, every single look at film, every single ice bath, every single heat, every single whatever I need to do to be prepared, not only in the game, but to take the last shot. They're trusting that I've done my entire process that week or that year to take that shot. As in, I respect everyone enough and I respect everything that we're doing. And I'm being honest enough to know that I put the work in to be prepared for that shot.
Right.
Also meaning, if I miss that shot, I know what I need to do to shoulder that loss in order to bounce back and keep the team moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So we come out better and we come out on top the next week. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people think of the shot. So not that that's this topic today. That's not your question. But, he sent me a message and he said, hey, man, I've been sharing that, giving you the credit for it. But I've been sharing that and it fills people as much as it fills me. Keep kicking ass. Dude, that text message, I'll ride that fucking thing for a year because I appreciate the person that it comes from, right? That fuels me that even when that dude is not looking, that I'm doing all I can with our team. Because if that guy respects me enough to not only think of me or think of things that I've got in mind and then to speak about me and even be mentioned, he's trusting me that when he's not around, even though he's not even in the same company as you and I, he's trusting that I'm being a good dude, right? And that I'm adhering to everything that I talk about. That's where integrity comes in, and that's where that level of integrity could be a core value. Mm-hmm. If it's expressed in that type of context to where it carries enough weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right.
So I'm thinking of like my fellow leaders and peers that much to know that they respect what I'm doing. I have to do the right thing.
And I think that naturally just comes through you, dude, because it's not anything that you're saying. It's just a feeling. Like a lot of it can be like harsh, especially in the beginning for people when they're learning new things and they're not used to like personality to personality, and it's hard for a lot of people to take in. but then I think they learn very quickly, and it's nothing that you even say or do. It's just this underlying feeling. And I think, maybe it's just with how authentic you talk, it's just super obvious that you care, man. And I think that's where a lot of people out there, a lot of leaders, a lot of business owners are going to fuck up, because they're going to think, oh, I just need to be hard on people like the military, and then they're going to fucking listen. But their team is going to know that they're just being an asshole, and they don't actually know what they're doing, and they don't actually care, and they're just being an asshole because they think that's what you're supposed to do.
They're wrong.
They're wrong.
They're wrong.
Yep.
Because I'm not always hard on everybody, right? Like,
that's my next question. So that's two part.
Yep.
Is how you know when to push and you know when to pull back.
I think it's just emotional intelligence. Like,
okay,
you might be able to like feed yourself a little bit of bullshit, but if you're paying attention to the data and where people are putting their attention or their efforts, you know whether they're pulling some punches. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we give ourselves excuses and we try to work our way out of a situation. And a lot of times when we're talking to our leader per se, we're thinking out loud and we're trying to process certain thoughts, and you can tell. And listen, man, you can tell when someone feels bad. Mm-hmm. Like, we've had some people in business call us, hey, so-and-so wanted me to call you. Here's what happened. And I'm sorry, and whatever I can do, yada, yada, yada. And I'll go, hey, you're not the one that should be calling me. Your superior should be calling me, mm-hmm. because this whole mess up, I appreciate your apology and what happened, but this part of it was out of your control, and there's a system breakdown within the entire company.
Right.
And I am peers with the guy running your company. I'm not peers with you. And this person that's the leader should be taking accountability, not you. And this issue is bigger than you.
Right.
There was problems before you, and there's probably going to be problems after you, which means, why should I throw that whole burden on you because you happen to be the one to get told to call?
And she didn't expect that, because you're badass Will.
She literally said on the phone, I wish you were more mad at me because I feel terrible. And I'm not going to mention her, but I said, listen, I can already tell you're super mad at yourself. She's a good person, man. She tries hard. She would show up at our meetings when it wasn't even needed to just learn more. She was really putting herself out there and taking on a ton. And when this happened, I could tell it mattered to her. And my biggest thing is just impact, and then also making sure people understand the weight and the level of seriousness some things are. Well, dude, she was already speaking that to me. Mm-hmm. I could already tell that she carried that weight on her. So why am I going to just keep pushing that button? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I don't want to be one-dimensional and just be hard on someone. I said, I said, listen, I'm not going to be mad at you like you want. I can already tell you're mad enough at yourself.
Right.
And I can tell that everything within your control, I trust that this isn't going to happen again. Mm-hmm. The only thing I'm upset about is everything else that was out of your control that your superior is not talking to me about right now. Mm-hmm. Because he's also someone that I respect, someone that I see once a week, that we do a lot together, mm-hmm. and I expect that phone call.
Right.
I'm not going to take that on her. Mm-hmm. And I could just tell, man, within her emotions and with just who she is, everything she did for 3 months prior to a mistake, there were patterns of success. There was patterns of care. You know what I mean?
So you're looking at the big picture,
dude,
versus an individual instance. Right.
I look at things toward people, man, when they're not even paying attention to themselves.
Is that something that was intuitive to you, or has that been developed as you've gone through your careers?
I think there's some talent to it, which is why I was better at it. But it was also my lifeline, especially as a police officer. Mm-hmm. Like, some of this stuff is not just, military, man. Like, when you're a police officer on the street, you don't have people that just look bad that are wanting to shoot at you, man. Like, where everyone is running around with an AK looking like Osama bin Laden shooting at you, right? Like, dude, when you're in the city, they're citizens for the most part, right? Like, they look like everyone else in that neighborhood. You don't know who to believe. But if you know your beat, if you know your area, and you've been watching someone, you've been watching a lot of people and paying attention for months, mm-hmm. you're going to start figuring out who's sketchy and who's not sketchy. And if you're taking notes and someone's telling you something one time and a different thing another time, you're going to figure it out, man. You just got to apply yourself and pay attention. So yeah, man, I carry that over to what we do now. And I could tell she still cares. That girl still, cares a ton. Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing, man. Sometimes people are overly apologetic, because sometimes apologizing is applauded nowadays, and it also is a scapegoat. And people have no problem articulating what they did wrong to be apologetic, but that can also become a pattern, right? And sometimes we just got to say, hey, you got to get fucking going, man. Like, and sometimes people need a little swift kick in the ass, but it's more about the accountability. Like, hey, no, this is on you, and you've got to make that change. And sometimes when people feel the accountability, they know where that line's at, they start moving forward.
And here's a trend that I've seen, man, and this is why it's been so good for, us to work as close as we have, the past couple of years, because I also observe a lot, and there's not a whole lot of people like you, man. So it's been super fun. Kind of like you mentioned, getting in the industry, you'll kind of shut your mouth for a bit and observe, and then just kind of see, how everything pans out before you speak on things. And that's been me, our first year of business, man. Like, I'm shutting the hell up. I'm letting you do your thing. You be fucking Will, and I'm going to sit back and watch, because you've been through a lot of different experiences. And I want to see how this plays out. And this is exactly why I wanted to work with you, because let's see how this goes.
Yeah. But that's not entirely true.
No.
Like, you're discrediting yourself a little bit, because you do speak up more than you realize, or more than you're saying initially.
And I am more now, because now I'm learning you and why you do the things that you do.
Right.
And that's really the big thing. And I think, as we've had altercations, not altercations, that's the wrong word. Not with us, but with agent.
I'm a teddy bear fat. You fucking shut this guy up with
and not altercations. That's the wrong word, but
no, it's not. It's
tough conversations with agents on the team, accountability conversations. Hey, you fucked this up conversation. Dude, every single one of those conversations that's kind of peaked with an individual agent, the camaraderie after that, their attachment to you, how they look at you, their perception of you, it only improves. It's never gone down.
No.
Because
they get to know you better. And I think intent is the most powerful piece of mine, is being proficient. Don't get me wrong. You got to be fucking proficient. In addition to that, intent. So where your delivery is coming from, where what you want to say to someone is coming from, even if it has to be harsh because it's just needed.
Yeah.
Where it's coming from, and they know that you love them and you care and you want to be better, but they need that hard talk. Sometimes they do. However, here's what's so fun about when I joined the Marine Corps. It's voluntary. This was not a draft. You signed up.
Right.
I'm going to fuck you up. Mm-hmm. It's my job, right? You signed up for this, Grimes, right? Now, less extreme is we'll call real estate. We're not fucking anybody up here. However, look, man, we go over goals. We go over who you are as a person and who you want to be and what you're all about and what are your goals in real estate in addition to just numbers. I care about your number, right? I care about who you are, because I know who you are and what you're all about is going to get you to where you are. So when we're going through tough conversations with accountability meetings, I'm talking to you about what you want. I'm not putting some goal on you of 50 deals a year. We reverse that. That means that equals 300 calls a day and all that stuff. And now I'm forcing something down your throat. And a lot of parents do that, right? They got to be a lawyer or a doctor or you just got to go to college. There's a lot of that. But it's not necessarily at the best interest, nor is it in the kids' want, correct? Well, how we run our team and how the nature of our industry is you chose to be here. And then when you choose to be on the team and we interview and all that good stuff and we go over it, man, I never tell you a number. I never say you got to do 12 or more a year or you're gone. No. Everything is literally predicated upon what you want for yourself.
Right.
And then here's my only deal. I don't care if you do one deal a year, but how we care for people and how that process and how our clients are put first is not sacrificed. Bottom line. After that, I don't care if it's one deal or 100 deals a year. That care is mandatory, correct? We're putting people first and we're being proficient at our job. Done deal. Now, anything else within accountability of time blocking and how you're handling your calendar and how your follow-up is going or how you're handling certain things, it's all predicated upon the goal that you want. Oh, I want to hit 24 deals a year. Or you're just not being proficient within the process, right? Like negotiations or, you're not communicating well and now you got to put out a fire, but that fire could have been prevented. We're altering that. But again, getting better at the process once you have a client start to finish, that's going to help, one, not only have you care better the next time for someone, but also be more proficient. Both of those lead to more deals because as you do better with that process, you get a ton of referrals from it.
Right.
And then you have that successful business, right? So, but again, it's all rooted within what people want for themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. And what I think that shows again is when you're having a harsh conversation with somebody, because it's based off of what they told you they wanted when they joined the team, they're like, damn, this guy really does care. Like, this is what I said. He really does care. And a lot of people, the number one thing they said when they joined our team is they want accountability. And now they're actually getting it.
Oops.
And very few people, very few grown adults ever feel that pit in your stomach of accountability, man. Like, very few people. They'll apologize to their boss or something. They really internally don't give a fuck because it's not their company, it's their boss. Oh, I pissed off Bill today. They don't really care.
Right. So let's get to team. So I'm glad you said that, because here's the deal. You can walk away from yourself all day. You can switch teams, you can whatever. But when we're teaching a class and we have accountability meetings, we have team meetings, we have certain things that we're doing together as a team. If you're not doing your individual part that overall contributes to the momentum and success of the team, you're now letting your peers down. You're not just letting mommy and daddy down, and you don't ever have to see Will again, or you don't have to see Eli again. There's peers that you've created a friendship with on the team, and they trust you, and they call you, and they ask for help, and you ask them for help, and you're doing open houses together, right? And you're cranking, you're having fun with that, and hey, I want to go to a closing, and someone takes you to their closing. You're building that bond, which means holding up your end of the bargain is bigger than you now, because someone's going to lean on you for motivation. Someone's going to lean on you.
Us.
Dude.
Yeah.
And that's right. So again, that's where your culture starts building. And this is why, like, I can't, for my experience, for how I run things, I can't come out of the gate just throwing core values out there, because there's not enough weight behind them yet. But if we take a successful team that's hit top 1% in production nationwide, and they sacrifice together, right? They lost sleep together. They were stressed together. They were worried about their identity together. They were worried about bills and where they're going to be in a year from now together. When we have a talk with them and we say, hey, out of everything we've done together, what's at the core of what we did that made us successful? And the people that are not here, what were they lacking? That was a piece of our core that led to them not being here. And you let them have a say in what your core value is. And here's my thing. Camaraderie is forged in adversity. You can apply that to combat. A lot of people have said that in the past. I'm not, that's not my quote. I'm taking that from years past. But a lot of guys that have come and gone through combat, it wasn't about politics. It wasn't about, other stuff that you might think it is. It's about the guy to your left and your right. But the camaraderie was forged in adversity, as in everything you were going up against, and the level of sacrifice and the level of everyone needing to do their part to be successful forges that camaraderie. But here's the thing too, man, like, that's super true in business, right? Like, you and I broke as shit, top ramen, sleeping in a basement, like whatever it is, but then super sacrificing, right? And going all in with each other, relying on each other to do our parts, and trusting in each other to go from that to where we're at now. Dude, there's a lot of adversity that comes with that. And I get it. Nobody's dying, but nobody has to. We don't need to, like, make a facade out of that stuff. It carries over. It applies. It's human nature. Any type of adversity that you can think of applies to that camaraderie, right? And it's fucking huge, which again is why when we reverse engineer this with our team soon, and we talk about what was at the core of our success, dude, they bled with us in business. They trusted us when we were young. They're all crushing and kicking ass, and their lives are better. Their families are better. Their financial situation is better. There's weight behind the conversation with them about core values versus me just having some on a piece of paper for you when you walk in for an interview and I say, here's our core values. There's no weight. Those core values are as heavy as that piece of paper.
Yeah, it means nothing.
But when someone has sacrificed alongside of you and they've come out on top with you, there's so much weight behind that.
Right.
My friend, that's culture. Culture's, the word culture is such a disjustice to how you feel about that word. Like, if I call you brother, or if you and I celebrate something successful and we say, hey man, great day. Or if we go through something tough together, or if you have a day where, man, it was bad for you, or something frustrated you, and it's a, hey, dude, you do it for me. Don't worry about it. It's cool.
Yep.
You do it for me. And then you have done it for me. Those kind of things, it's like, dude, how do you put a word to that feeling? Well, we have to. We have to communicate it, and it's called culture. However, getting people to embrace that and exposing people to that rigorous of a transition, and not everybody making it, it's going to create the feeling behind the word, which is what I think needs to come before you start throwing out core values.
It does, and I think that helps a ton of people, the adversity aspect. This goes back to a few episodes ago talking about how, you know, the power of broke and how a lot of negative things aren't actually negative. And for me, after witnessing so many conversations to where it was harsh, I'm like biting my knuckle sometimes, like, oh my God. You know, and you just
accounts getting overdrafted because our bills were in your checking account.
And like,
oh,
just
shit.
having these like, you know, these confrontational conversations with people. But then when I get to see the outcome of that, I'm like, God damn, he's right. Camaraderie is forged in adversity. And then I think that becomes contagious to people. And then I think, you know, the agents that have those conversations with you, and then they come out and see the light on the other side, that makes them able to have those conversations with their family, with other clients. And of course, they're different in different arenas, but it kind of, it calluses you up a little bit to be like, okay, I can handle some shit. I can handle this.
Yeah, man. And when you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and you know not everybody gets to stay there, when you know that that's been earned by a code, not by just some number, but by a code, you're proud. You wear that proud. You ever seen a Marine at a boot camp? Watch out, bro. Stiff as a board.
Yeah, really.
Confident, proud. He'll knife hand and slap the shit out of you right out of boot camp, right? They might slap me. I might be so surprised that some fucking PFC smacks me because I'm walking in front of him in San Diego. And I might go, God damn.
Yeah.
I remember that. I might even let it happen.
Right.
I might even go, right on, devil. Right? Just because. But, and is there some arrogance? Of course, man. We're not going to dive into that. But everything those young Marines had to go through. And, dude, you know what's fun, man? They don't give you your Eagle Globe and Anchor in front of your family. At the Crucible, your last little expo, man, is this big hike at the end of that 3 days. And when you make it to the top of that, you're in formation, tired, dirty, pack on. Everybody lines up in formation. And those drill instructors have been fucking you up for 3.5 months. Come in front with a box, and they go one by one. And they shake your hand, and they give you your Eagle Globe and Anchor.
How's that feel, man?
Amazing.
How's that feel?
It's amazing.
That's got to be crazy. Like this dude that's been fucking you up.
Yep.
And then handing you that.
And calls you Marine. Okay? And it's not in front of anybody else except for the people that earned it with you. Now, you still graduate in front of your family and everything, you know, and you do your salutes and your family gets to see you graduate. But at least during our time, like your family does not see that. You get your Eagle Globe and Anchor while you're out there with your guys that became Marines together. And you know what, man? There's an intimacy behind that. And you almost don't want other people to see it.
Right.
Does that make sense? You know, there's some weight behind that. But again, even though you just became a Marine that day and everything is about honor and courage and commitment, Marine Corps, hold on a minute. It was subculture too, because it was those 4 drill instructors that rode your ass and brought you up and didn't give up on you when you gave up on yourself that made you that in the first place.
Right.
But it was their interpretation of what they felt a Marine should be at that moment that got you there. Not someone from World War II, not someone from Vietnam. And that's no disrespect to any generation. What I'm getting at is those guys were trusted by their guys in front of them when they, you know, to adhere to making Marines.
Right.
But they've got to translate that in their perspective and how they see a Marine. So that there's still that subculture that bleeds through everyone from the top down, but you're not thinking of Chesty Puller when you're in boot camp, right? One of the most famous Marines. Okay, you're not. I'm not singing the Marine Corps hymn in my fucking dreams. No, dude, but I remember my drill instructors. I remember getting my Eagle Globe and Anchor. Things like that, right? So you got to find a way to duplicate that. Now, here's the deal. Okay, Will, great. I wasn't in the military. Or, great, I was in the Marine Corps and it sucked.
Right.
Or, I wasn't in the Marine Corps at all. I get it. However, right, this is why going through your own trials and tribulations first. This is why being successful at something first, making sure it's sustainable, and making sure you have a model to duplicate it is so important, because you're going to go through your trials and tribulations and you're going to battle fear. You're going to battle self-identity. You're going to battle putting clients first or trying to make a paycheck. Do I want to bring this up about the inspection or not?
Right.
Is it a big deal or not?
Right.
You're going to go through those, as you create your process. And as you clear and get out of that tunnel and get to the other side on your own or with a business partner, and you're successful at it, and you realize that can be sustained, and then you go, hey, I think we're onto something. I think we can duplicate it. The biggest piece that's going to happen when you start putting people on your team is they're going to start going through what you went through. If you can't speak to that, you're wrong. If you can't speak to that, allowing people to be under you and trust you as a leader to bring them value, you've mistaken them. So this isn't about the Marine Corps. You know, I learned a ton, and I had I walked amongst giants, dude. I'm not even a big deal. They are. So that gave me a lot. However, you can listen to this podcast right now because I'm doing my best to have as much influence on everyone that I can. You could be listening to this right now and go, man, that's some good shit. I get it. And you can literally start your process today. But before you go throwing that tie on, before you go jump on that fucking jet and taking photos and trying to attract people to your team and making it flashy, why don't you just go through it?
Right.
Why don't you just stay in the dirt, man, and go through the reality behind what people are going to go through and what they're going to want from you as a leader and what they should expect from you as a leader before you ever put someone on that team.
And I think, you know, dude, you fucking lived your core values. Like you live that shit before ever expecting anyone else to. And I think that's something important too.
How else do you lead?
I think a lot of guys out there, they're flip-flopping through the day. Their diet's fucked up. They don't work out regularly. They don't actually keep themselves accountable to anything. But then they slap those. They don't have integrity, but then they slap, you know, consistency, integrity, customer care. But they don't actually do any of that in their real life.
Managers.
I think it's got to start with you first of all, right? Start with you first of all. And then, like you said, as you start getting good at some things, you know, and then you have a proven level of success, then when you start bringing that into your team, they're going to be able to see if you're full of shit or not.
And guess what? It's actually less stressful.
Yeah.
You start getting people on your team, whatever your business is, whatever you want to build. Oh shit, people are coming on board, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're trying to learn and lead at the same time, and you're faking that funk, dude. You got one shot at your word.
Right.
More times than not, right? You got one shot at being good to your word. And when people find out you're full of shit, this is where social media and different places can expose you. This is not the olden days where like someone doesn't like you, but she can move to another town and do another thing. No, man, your word matters, right? So just like I went broke, right? I get rid of cars, I get rid of trucks, I sleep in the basement. Even though I was struggling with my identity and certain things and fear, true. But dude, I also slept at night well. Right, because I didn't have so much stress or obligation on me. I minimized. So when you're wanting to start a team or start a business, not adding pressure of other people's expectations onto you. So not shouldering that last shot at the game. So let me give you an analogy. If you're that rookie, if you're Kobe Bryant and you're on your 6th game in the NBA, I bet Gary Fisher takes that shot. Okay, not you. However, you shouldn't expect yourself to take that shot. And you shouldn't be raising your fucking hand. Now, I get it. Sports, if you're open, there's other circumstances. I get it. But staying true to the example I'm trying to give right now, let's say that's not the case. Man, you're so new. Just learn from as many people as you can, and then just stick to your practice. Stick to learning the fundamentals. Stick to learning how you work on the court with that team, and making sure that what you can do, you can duplicate it. And then when you start running the team, hey, as how I see the defense, as how I see the offense, can I duplicate that and communicate it with what the coach wants? Then at that point, man, you've done enough to command the last shot at the end of the game. And that's the part that pisses me off, is everybody wants that to be the guy shooting the last shot of the game in business. Flashy, and they're the whatever. Their shit doesn't stink. The audacity that some people have to have the expectation that they should have the last shot at the game, at the end of the game, dude, it's borderline fucking criminal. You shouldn't command that. And if you have any respect for people, you know, you would see that. And in addition, dude, nobody's expecting you to do that. In business, like, hey, you're over there raising your fucking hand. Nobody made you make a team. Nobody made you have people trust in you and then start giving you expectations and you put it back on them. No, man, you chose. So if you're going to take that step, start it right and start that foundation right, and don't worry about the last shot at the game. No, man. Like, the command and the respect that you need to even have someone respect the fact that you want that shot is huge. Just learn your process, be super good at it, make sure it's sustainable, then make sure you can duplicate that. And then at that point, man, if that shot doesn't work out, I bet you bounce back really strong because you've got a really good core foundation and you've got really good fundamentals to bounce back from something that maybe you didn't expect. Or that entire city, like Peyton Manning throws an interception and loses the game for the Broncos. If you hate Peyton Manning that day, you're just not a football fan. I don't care if you're a Bronco fan. If you want to call that guy a piece of show, fucking Peyton, listen. If you're a football fan, if you're a people fan, if you're a leader fan, and you understand the impact that guy's had, listen, dude, the amount of weight behind what he just did, and even though a mistake happened, and how he's going to bounce back and what he's accomplished in his career and the poise that he's done it with, admirable, right? But I think people need to understand respect, have more respect for everybody else, if you right versus wanting to like have everybody follow you. Make sure you figure it the fuck out, kind of thing, right? So I think it's huge.
Let's touch on those people, man, that they're listening to this and they're like, "Hey, I'm just a guy. I don't run a team. I'm not part of a company. I just got a wife and some kids, man."
Oh,
let's talk about that type of.
Well, one, I appreciate you listening to the podcast. If we're staying hypothetical, right? If you're that guy, one, I bet you've got some really good self-awareness, and I bet you're comfortable in your own skin, which I think is phenomenal. And you don't want a team, and you go to work and you do your thing, and great. And you're great at your job, but you're not a leader. You go in and you do what you're expected to do, and you go home, dude. I admire people like that because of the self-awareness, and then just taking the pride of being good at your job.
And then,
right?
Surprise, surprise. You are a leader and you are developing culture. You may just not know it.
True. But I think for that kind of guy, if he's putting his effort in at work and he's doing all the right things and he's doing a great job, I think that's going to bleed through at home. And this is why Marines lead from the front. And this is why leading by example is part of what builds a culture. I love telling my kids what to do. And I love if my daughter gets in trouble and I want to go back and explain it to her. Cool. But as they get older and smarter, at some point, man, like you got to make sure that whatever you're expecting, you're super proficient at it with yourself.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times, and dude, some guys that go to work and they do what they're expected and they're cool with that. I've got a lot of friends like that. Phenomenal dads. Where I see, just personally, so this isn't an attack on anybody. This isn't, well, I don't see that, Will. Great. Cool. I get it. I'm staying in my lane. Sometimes what I see is the guys that slip most are the guys who are leaders at work.
Right.
I saw it a lot. I saw it a lot in police officers. They were phenomenal at making decisions on the street and conflict resolution with domestic violence or just community conflict and different things. Man, they were phenomenal at it. But you get exhausted and you've left nothing in the tank for coming home. And when you come home, you don't want to make any decision. Honey, what do you want for dinner? I don't care. Hey, where do you want to go with the guy? I don't give a fuck. And you know what? I kind of don't blame you. I get it. You've been making decisions all day. High risk, low risk, annoying, whatever. And you're good at your job and you take pride at it, but you haven't created a system that's sustainable.
Right.
To sustain, right? When you go home and when you've got to like, hey, man, you got to put that hat on. And sometimes we get so comfortable with our families, we get complacent.
I think a lot of people just aren't aware. Like,
you ever fart in front of your wife? Let's get a little lighthearted. You ever fart in front of your wife?
All the time.
All right, you're complacent because at first you didn't want to fart in front of her. Why didn't you maintain that,
bro?
Don't go. I farted in front of her date one.
Oh no, I'm not saying that.
Okay, good,
dude. For probably the first year, so Megan lived with her mom at this apartment complex right across the street from a grocery store
by Tammy Lynn.
And
trailer park joke.
I would, whenever I was like spending the night over at Megan's, I wouldn't even fart at her house, bro. I would have to I would go, if I had to go number 2, I would go across the street to the grocery store to pick up something for breakfast or pick up some random drink that I didn't actually need just so I could use the restroom at the grocery store.
Fat, could you imagine this fucking dude leaving his girlfriend's house
that was a
6
year.
times?
That was a
6
year,
times
dude.
a night? Like, hey, where's your ADD boyfriend going?
Yeah, that was a year,
Hilarious.
Man. Yeah.
Okay, but now you're complacent.
Yeah.
Or comfortable.
There.
Okay.
In that aspect, right.
And I'm being funny. I'm being lighthearted. But let's take this back into context here. Sometimes we're with our families for so long and we're together that we forget to produce. We forget like our responsibilities as a partner, and that, hey, yes, we do need to decompress at home. Yes, we need rest. Yes, sometimes we vent to our partners because that's our safe haven. But a lot of times we don't take care of our safe haven, and our safe haven becomes our place of comfort that then goes even further and becomes our place of complacency. And we are not aware of our responsibilities at home. And man, that complacent and man, when you're complacent in combat, complacent on the street as an officer, complacency with your family, like, man, that is a dangerous word. There's very few words that are just dangerous across the board, right? Some of them can be subjective and whatever, right? Complacent. Ugh. It's dangerous.
That's a bad word.
But man, here's the other thing. Our partners tend to get complacent too. So if I'm not holding up my end of the bargain, but then my partner, if Kate's not holding up her end of the bargain, I'm not even noticing it as much, or it's hard to say anything because I don't either. It's just, so when you go home, whether you're that guy that you're talking about, like, hey, he's just a guy, which is, by the way, no one's just a guy, right? You can own your job, man.
And that's the whole point of why I brought that up.
Good.
Because no one is just a guy.
Right.
You're a fucking leader. You're building culture, whether you know it or not.
Well, so the very good point. So as a father, right, and we're not saying that moms don't have the same impact. Moms can have a greater impact. Don't get me wrong, man. My mom is awesome. She talks more than I do. No, I talk more than she does, but she talks a lot, and my mom is phenomenal. And my mom is a lot of where my point of view comes in, even though I don't talk to her every day, or sometimes, I treat her like Tosh treats me. Like, I don't got 20 minents for that call. I'm not answering.
Yeah.
And I get it. But it doesn't mean that I don't think about my mom every day. It doesn't mean that a lot of, her efforts and leading by example haven't impacted me extraordinarily. They do.
A lot of times moms create the culture in the home more so than the fathers.
100%. Right. So again, when just to be clear here, like when I'm talking about being a father and going home, I'm only speaking to them because that's my perspective. Right. I can give an opinion on Kate and what I think of her, which is phenomenal, but I can't necessarily speak directly to it. Yeah. So, but as a parent, right, and as a father, you're right. You're going to go home whether you like it or not. If you got kids and you're responsible for them, right, like you're creating lack of or culture, whether you like it or not. And this does, man. This
it's a culture, whether it's a good one or a bad one. It's a culture.
Dude, go expand.
Yeah.
Gentlemen that decide not to raise their kids, you created a culture.
Yes, you did.
There is a huge culture epidemic across the board with fatherless kids in America. Yeah. And it's acceptable. And it's not. It should not be acceptable. But I feel like, just from what I've seen, and I'm only staying in my lane, it's almost become acceptable for a guy to do that. However, that kid has to grow up, and that kid is here, like it or not. And that kid is growing up in something or lack of something, like it or not. And we've created a culture. And you've seen some of that culture act out in professional sports. And when those kiddos become adults, they're not handling their business how they should as an adult, right? And man, and I'll leave it at that because I'm not trying to get stuck in some political bullshit, whatever it may be. But man, it's culture, or lack of, which becomes like a black-hearted culture, whatever it may be. A black-hearted as in just no good energy around it, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, and for everyone that does take care of their kids, it's one thing to be a parent. Yeah. It's another to be a good one.
Well, and something that I want to touch on too, like you can even be a phenomenal parent, but understand that as our team watches us and they watch our content and they see, are they doing what they're telling us to do? Your kids, if you're getting mad at your kid for having a breakdown tantrum inside of the grocery store because you won't get them the bubble gum or balloons or whatever, if they're having a breakdown there and you're trying to scold them, but then when you guys are going out to dinner or the movies and little Billy can't find his shoes and little Tina has her socks on her ears or some shit and you're losing your goddamn mind because you're 5 minutes late for a movie, what does that tell your kids? You don't understand. They're watching you and you're the leader, and that's the culture you're building.
Well, why can't they find their shoes, Dad?
Great point.
Okay, great point. Maybe prior to that movie, maybe for the last 5 years of raising them, there's some patterns you can put in there to make sure that they put their shoes and things where they're supposed to go,
right?
So they're prepared,
right?
I'm huge on that, but you're right. So emotional management, I'm looking at our last 2 points for today.
See, I knew you wanted to talk about that, and
Yeah.
I gave you a little segue.
I saw you eyeing my notebook.
I gave that little segue
and then
right
you take
there.
credit for it.
I
Get
gave
your
that-
own fucking notebook, Eli. Wow. Honesty, integrity.
Dude, I know.
schmuck.
I would spend half the time reading and not actually listening.
I get it.
Yeah.
Nope, I get it.
No, and honestly, this is one I wanted to ask questions, man. Like this is your jam,
Look,
dude.
man,
I
that's not fair. I don't like that.
It's
Don't put me on that.
It's selfish for me. I wanted to ask questions.
You're right. It's selfish for you, and then you're putting me on a pedestal that I don't deserve.
No,
right?
Well,
I have some things that I'm good at, but listen,
Yes.
man, you're discrediting some conversations that were great that you and I have had the past year. Where, man, I've learned some really good stuff from you with where I shouldn't put my energy and. And hey, man, do you think they're going to be right? Like, there's been some people, man, I've wanted to really like preach to and put some energy into them. And you're just like, hey, man, I don't think they fucking care. And I'm like, you're right. And then you're like, hey, smoke this blunt, being funny and stuff like that. But listen, man, you know, one thing that I gained from you is like, yeah, dude, all this leadership stuff, it's great. And I'm super, super blessed for the people I've had in my life. But you've been with civilians a lot longer than I have, okay? So you're like that subject matter expert on just society to almost a better perspective than me, which means like when I've got you to fall back on, when we're a pair, I get to bounce that perspective off of you, which just keeps me within my rails. So no, man, you are kind of being selfish right now, and I definitely don't appreciate, but don't deserve that pedestal at all, not even a little bit, because again, I'm taking all of these things, but I can only take it from my backgrounds, or I can only take it from my experiences, from what I've done. And I've been around some high-level people. And rest assured, law enforcement and the Marine Corps and things I've experienced operate on a different wavelength, okay? There's different codes of ethic. There's different thick-skinnedness and ways of handling things that are not acceptable. I'm not saying wrong. Not wrong at all. Not acceptable in today's society.
Right.
We'll put it that way, right? So I've had to work on my delivery. I've had to work on, right? Because good initiative, bad judgment kind of thing, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much you care if people only see you as the asshole.
Right.
Okay, now they've just tuned you out.
Right.
Huge. So, just being fortunate to have you where, okay, maybe I bring a lot of leadership tools, right? But you just knowing civilians and being around society a lot longer than me, it's a good guiding light. And getting back to a Peyton Manning, not that I'm Peyton Manning, so don't get crazy if you're watching this. I'm not. But to give a good analogy, it's like Peyton Manning going from the Colts to the Broncos, right? He went from the Colts, and then he had surgery, and he's had all these great tools of leadership and studying film and all this shit. And then he goes to a completely different playbook. West Coast offense, completely different style of playing football. They play outside most of the season. They don't play in that dome in Indy and other domes in their division. So he had all these great tools, but a completely different playbook and field of play and style, right? So I bet he leaned on his quarterback coach, and he leaned on his head coaches and defensive just everyone to make sure that his tools were in the right direction and used the right way. Does that make sense? So not that I'm Peyton Manning, and not that you're a black football coach, or no, excuse me, it was what's his name from the Panthers, white guy, being funny. So not that we're that level. I'm not even saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, I get to be in a really good comfort zone, and I really get to get in my zone and comfortable in my own skin, because you do have that perspective of society and just how people have been working in the civilian world, and a lot of your judgment has helped me. Right, well, long-winded, but man, there's just got to be credit to that, and I can't just be this guy that's like gun ho and came out of the military. Now I'm just whipping ass and doing awesome in the civilian world. No, man, that's not true, and I don't want that perception. The value behind being able to run things across to you, and the value behind just bouncing those ideas off of you, or just when you speak up when it's needed, and man, you might not think it's a huge deal because that's your wheelhouse. I don't think my wheelhouse is a big deal, right?
Yeah,
it's just, hey, man, this is just who I am. You're watering down a lot of things that really keep me within a good direction, right?
Well, and I think, what people need to realize about you, like what they see on the surface is not you at all, dude. Like, I think they'll talk to you for 10 seconds, and then they're like, oh, okay, I got them figured out. But then they talk to you for 20 seconds, and they're like, wait, huh? Then they talk to you for 2 minutes, and like, I don't know what to think right now.
Maybe.
But something it's just important about you to realize is that, like, yeah, for as much as you talk, you fucking listen, And then not only do you listen, but you dwell on shit and you think about shit and you replay shit and you interpret shit for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like someone will say something to you in a conversation, or I'll bring something up, or you'll say something to somebody, you'll see what the outcome was, and then you're dwelling on that and interpreting that and analyzing that, I think is the word I was looking for. You're analyzing that for a long time and saying, was this right? Could I change this? Did this have the impact I thought it would? People don't do that. And I'll give you some civilian insight. People don't think about shit, dude. Words come out of their mouth and they don't think about the weight that it has. They don't think about the potential outcomes of it. It's a very unique type of person that does that, especially to the healthy level that you do it. The only time you see that really in civilian world with normal people, I'll say, are the people that do it in a terrible way. Like, oh, this guy said this to me. I should have said this and this and this. That's the only time people like circle shit in their head.
Right.
Outside of that, you analyze every conversation you have. Other people don't do that, dude. And I'm getting better at that. Like I have to, like I'll shower at night before bed, and I purposefully like take that shower time to think, okay, what were my conversations I had today? And I learned that from you. And that's where I think a lot of this stuff, it can be developed, it can be developed.
When you create a process for yourself, that's where it no longer, because let's get back to emotions, and I'll kind of correlate this together. And this is a Tosh thing, right? He's talked about this on his podcast, so I'm not definitely not taking credit for it, man. This is one of the things that, he's spoken about that really I've really taken to heart and managed for a while now. And that's allowing your emotions to have that majority vote during the time you're making decisions. And just understanding that perspective changes when you have time to settle down, or even if you're not riled up, just marinating on some stuff,
right?
Just kind of seeing how things kind of play out, whatever it may be. But when you're talking about like your shower and man, I think, so that's Marine Corps, right? We do what's called an after action report on fucking everything, right? For the day, if you're training and you're going through squad leaders course, if you're with your team in the field and you're just training with your unit, man, every day you're going to have an after action report on, man, what's working, what's not working, what could we do better,
right?
What no longer needs anything, right? And if it doesn't need anything, it doesn't mean it's negative. Maybe you're just so proficient at something. Hey, great. So Kobe, you're awesome at dunking. We can skip that for 2 days and work on something else, and you're going to be fine. You're still going to dunk, right? Kind of like that, man. Like if you get super proficient at things, it's like, all right, cool. What needs work? Like what can I maybe put on the shelf for a couple of minutes or for a couple of days and really focus on something else with the team. But if you look at it, when you start thinking about after action reports, you go, well, yeah, you can after action report everything all the way down to every conversation you have. So when we have an accountability meeting with a team, right? Agent by agent by agent, in between, each agent coming through, you're already starting to think about it, right? And how they're reacting, and if you felt like it's settled, and maybe you don't know, maybe you're like, hey, are they really taking what I'm saying to heart? Would they have the right delivery? Well, here's the other thing. You're not always going to have the answer right away.
Yeah.
Watch how they react for a week.
Yeah.
Watch how they react for a month. This is what I get back to, like the whole fart thing. Farting in front of your girl. Like, listen, people can, oh, yeah, no, I get it. And people can act, oh, okay, and everything's great. Look, man, you're not going to hold that for a month.
Right.
I'm fucking watching for a month. I'm fucking watching for a year. So I'm going to see where there's a break in that pattern. And then I'm going to start to recognize it, and we've had agents before where they tend to mirror the emotion of the client, right? And we've addressed that, and now we've got agents crushing, but they didn't even realize they were doing it.
Right.
They become so people pleaser. When someone's happy, they want to share that happiness, and when there's someone sad, their client is sad, they want to be sad and point that finger somewhere. Versus understanding that we've got to manage people's emotions. You've got to manage your own first. You got to do that with your family and with your team. So again, it's a great tool. And I think, again, this is why it's not just Marine Corps. Man, I've said it so many times. I'm blessed that you're not. I'm blessed that you're a civilian, right? Because I've learned a ton. I get a different perspective. You have a lot more to say because you've been around civilians a lot longer than I have, which is great. And you are naturally gravitating to an after-action report where you get to clear your head. Dude, I do a ton of thinking in the shower, right? You naturally gravitated to that. So what does that mean? Like, oh, well, shit, where did after action reports come from? A human.
Yeah, right.
Someone reflecting on their day and like, fuck, man, how do we get better? If your want is there, your integrity is there, like your effort to be better is there, I think naturally you start gravitating to things And just because someone has already had the idea, you're not copying anybody. You naturally gravitated to a process where you could clear your head.
Right.
I used to do that driving a lot.
Yep.
And I got a family. I can't just go drive for 2 or 3 hours anymore and enjoy some music and just clear my head. I got a family. But, well, where's my downtime? In the shower. I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to that. Like, you get a minute and you get your 20 minutes in the shower and you get to clear your head. All of a sudden, that's where your after action report starts bleeding through. And you're a civilian. Yeah. So again, man, it's just human nature.
Yeah.
When your qualities are in the right place.
And you have to, and people have to be real careful, because I think where, people started deviating from doing that is when you come home, well, you listen to the radio, sitting in traffic, pissed off at the guy that almost cut you off, and your mind's preoccupied with that. And then you get home and you crack a beer and you turn on TV and you're just distracted and absent-minded. You're doing everything you can to not focus on the day and work, when in reality, if you took 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and on that way home, turn down the music, just be in traffic and then just recall everything that happened from the day, work that stuff out, you're going to get home so much more clear-headed, and then you're probably not going to feel the need to go and distract yourself.
Maybe.
But find those little 5-10 minute moments.
I think that's more accurate, like what you just said. Find the 5 or 10 minute or 20 minute moments, because like for guys like you and I, man, my drive home is filled with phone calls.
Exactly.
Or emails.
So for us, it's shower or whatever.
So that's I think what's most important, right, is just have a system in play.
Yes.
And just give that some care and some thought. And even if it's just for for the sake of your family, I think you should have those in play. And especially if you're a leader and you've got 2 phases. This is like our last thing, right? It's like for the evening, for a fun Friday night and a crazy busy week. A lot of ups and downs this week, but boy, did we end on a really good up. We've got a lot of accomplished. But this is what it comes down to, especially when you're having a hard time, or when you're rubbed thin, or you're stressed, or you're overexposed. Leadership as a choice or as an obligation. Obligation is going to be there as a phase. So if you choose to own a business, you now have an obligation as a leader to subordinates, right? Or if you choose to have a baby, right, you now have, whether you're there or not, man, whether somebody cuts you from your responsibility and you don't ever have to be around, you have an obligation to be a leader. And when we start feeling sorry for ourselves, or when we start doing things like that, man, it's a dangerous, slippery slope. But I think a lot of times people slip because they're complacent, man. Yeah. I think when people come home and they want to crack a beer and watch some TV, I have faith in humanity. I think people are good people, especially for the most part, right? I think what happens is they are complacent. They come home and they just want to decompress from the day, and they don't realize how much they're not giving their kids attention, or how much they're not giving their partner attention, and how much you can actually still decompress, but then have that after action report in your head for the day, and then still get back to your family. And I correlate this to like diets. Hey, people don't realize how much you can actually have a cheat meal and eat shitty food if you've got a system in play on a regular basis to eat super clean. No, you can actually have 2 or maybe even 3 little cheat meals a week and be super productive if you're actually doing what you're supposed to with your time.
That's so true, man.
Right? Like, it doesn't take much for the after action report. It doesn't take much to understand that you have an obligation as a leader if you have a family. I think we're just tweaked. I think we're just not paying attention to it. But if someone takes that minor tweak and goes, man, I do have an obligation to my kiddos, or I do have an obligation to this, and you get refocused, you get readjusted, and you reframe how you're thinking, you're right back on track. I don't think people are missing by that far. But here's the deal, right? Like, let's talk about shooting. Like, if you and I are this close, right, and I'm trying to hit center mass on you, and let's say I'm a 1/8 of an inch off. Okay, an 1/8 of an inch off here is an 1/8 of an inch, because I'm using that. But what's an 1/8 of an inch over the course of 300 yards? If it keeps traveling, keeps traveling in that direction, correct? And then 500 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,500 yards. How big is that? So take those yards and apply that to your day. If you're an 1/8 of an inch off, where you're not intentional with being a bad dude, and I don't think a lot of guys are, but you're not necessarily compartmentalizing and having some good processes to attack your day or then be productive at home. So maybe you're just off with a couple thoughts. But if those yards are days, right, and it's 100 days, that turns into 365 days. That turns into 500 days where you're just off. Here's the deal. A miss is a miss. If it's an eighth of an inch or if it's 3 feet off, hit or miss. And if you're missing, and those days start to compile. And then we wonder why our relationships aren't where they should be. Or, man, just bringing it to someone's attention. Like if you're seeing it in someone, bringing it up appropriately. Like those things matter when it comes to, again, choice and obligation. I think people need to understand, where that comes from. And if you're frustrated with yourself, and we've been talking about this a little bit lately too, man, if you're frustrated with yourself, if you're not happy, with where you're at, that weighs on you. Like stress weighs on you a lot, right? And guys, I'm only speaking about guys because I can relate to guys, right? But just I guess people in general, just I'm not where I think I should be. I'm not who I think I should be by now. And I thought differently. I thought this and I thought that. We talked about this today. Stop being scared of the boogeyman. The boogeyman is not real. So when you're thinking like, oh, I should have been here by now in life, or I thought I'd be a lot more successful, or I thought I'd be doing this, but I'm doing this, whatever it may be. This isn't who you are. This is where you're at.
Yeah.
But you're here and you have an opportunity. And if you keep letting these thoughts consume you, they do become your reality. You aren't the person you think you're supposed to be. But that thought gets so dangerous, you actually think there's that being somewhere and you're not him. Not true. You are who you are. And where you're at, right? Like it's not who you are forever. It's where you're at. But if you focus on some of these things we've talked about today, if you focus on your process, you're going to get where you need to be, and man, I'm 34, dude. We're having a great time and I'm comfortable in my skin and I know enough to know I don't know shit, right? I'm so open-minded at 34. It's not even funny, but the fact of the matter is we got guys that are thinking about themselves that are 8 years younger than us.
Yep.
But imagine them getting a hold of that right now and where they're going to be in 8 years when they're our age.
You got 13-year-olds thinking about that. Look at the suicides with 13-year-olds, man. It's dangerous. They're thinking the same shit.
And it's a huge deal, and that's something that I just don't even have context to speak on, right? It's just, I fear for kids because of that, man. And again, I haven't been directly around any kid of that age that's ever committed suicide or that's going through some stuff right now. I just, I haven't been a cop for a long time. I was around that when I was a cop. I can't speak to it lately, but I fear for kids and it just makes me want to do the best that I can with the kiddos that we have and just understanding that they have to make their own decisions. But embracing some of those harsh realities in life will give you perspective on, are you being present at home to do all you can to make sure when your kids are exposed to social media or the internet or when they are exposed to bullying, if that happens, that they speak up, or that if kids are doing drugs or whatever it is, that they have enough fundamentals from you day in and day out and being present that they make the right decision when you can't make it for them. Dude, that's all I care about.
And that's why I think, a platform like this for us to talk and just share our thoughts and be totally open is so important, man, because there's a lot of people that do have you on a pedestal and do think, hey, fucking Will's got it all figured out. And then when they hear you say all this stuff and they're like, man, like we are all we're all just trying to figure this fucking out.
Well, and this is why I can't, it's not like I'm against credit. I'm not, man. I appreciate when you or anyone else that's someone I respect throw me a shout out. Now I respect it and I do appreciate it. I just won't let it go to a level where it becomes untangible or it becomes like, well, you were this in the Marine Corps. So like, no, man, I didn't even know how to swim before boot camp. Dude, I was a swim qual 4. Here's the deal. Okay. I probably wouldn't have been a swim qual 4 in the 80s when there was no war going on.
What's that? What's a swim qual 4?
The lowest swimmer possible. I was a goddamn rock. I mean, Dwayne Johnson, you shouldn't be called motherfucker. I'm the goddamn rock, hey? You shouldn't be the rock. Here's the deal. If I went into the Marine Corps when it was not during a time of war, maybe they fail my ass. I don't know. I felt like I was that bad at it, okay? Yeah. But look, we're fighting in the desert. We need Marines to fight war. Yeah, fuck it, he swims. Like, I guess I drowned slow enough, so it worked. But I had to get myself into swim qual 2 to be attached to certain SOCOM units. And I sucked at it. My mom, I joke all the time. She was a fucking hippie, dude. Like, she got mad when we watched Lion King in 5th grade because it was premeditated murder. And I love my mom. I'm joking. However, I'm not. Like, I never shot a rifle till boot camp. So I do like when people understand that I don't have a magic pill. I wasn't talented at everything that I did. I really believed in what I wanted to be.
Right.
And I was trying super hard. But now, I think at 34 and I've been as successful in business, I think now I have a great perspective on how hard you can try at something before you give up. and how hard you can try at something and be open-minded to just teaching and being resourceful, to being around the right people, to be super successful. Because it happened in the military and had a great time with it. It happened when I was a cop and I was super successful at it. And it's happening in business and I'm super successful at it. And I'm starting to realize, man, there's just a level of commitment and just deciding to do something, man. Like there's power behind a choice.
Yeah.
You might not think so, but just choosing to do something and the level of commitment and effort and dedication and borderline like being neurotic toward it, you'd be surprised how successful you can be at it. And before you say it's not your thing, man, how hard have you tried? And here's the deal. That's not entirely my credit. I had amazing Marines around me from start to finish that wouldn't let you quit on yourself. Get your bitch ass back in that pool. And
Right.
No, I never said no like that. I'm being funny.
Yeah.
Right? But from boot camp level on, right? Like, even when you thought about giving up on yourself, they didn't let you. And here's what that taught you. When you think you're done, you're not.
Yeah.
Right? But now I want to be that beacon for other people when I can. When people think they're done, I want to be like, hey, you're not.
Right.
I'm not letting you. Not like they did in the Marine Corps, but I really want to just shed some light. And I'm I'd like to think that I've moved on from the Marine Corps and I've learned how to be successful. And I'm not just holding on to that like the guy wearing his high school Letterman jacket at 35 years old. No disrespect.
A little bit.
Right?
Little bit.
But I'd like to, man, you got to move on from it. And you got to go better yourself and you got to be more than just the Marine Corps. You do. But I do like to think that I'm proud about what guys did for me when I was there that allowed me to see those things in myself.
Right.
I get proud when I can help people see that in themselves. I feel like it's now my responsibility to really get people to that level and make sure that they're accountable to themselves. And when you break and you don't think you have anything left, but then we don't give you a choice and you become successful, you just prove that to yourself.
Yeah.
And now you've really learned how hard you can work at something. And then guess what? What if that person we taught that to is a father? Now you have context to talk about something to your kid that's chasing his dreams.
Yes.
If you just frowned upon everything, if you fail at everything, or if you've always given up on yourself and you've never had the blessings of having someone around you like that, now when your kid wants to do the same thing, what are you going to say? Anything encouraging you say can't be first person because you've never done it.
Yep.
So
And
now
you
when
would
your
know
kid
it.
is afraid or when there's risk involved, now you're going to buckle like your kid's buckling.
Right.
And guess what? You're allowing your emotions to have the majority vote, and you're not shouldering what you should shoulder as a father. So, man, it's such a domino effect, and it goes so deep. And I think if people understand that, right, like they'll understand how much weight and how much impact that they do carry in this world. And you'll start having a better direction with like where it matters, right? You throw a comment out to social media and nobody sees it or gives a shit or they just make fun of you, but your direct circle with your family, your sphere of influence with your employees or people that you're a part of because you are one of the employees, but you just take pride in doing your work, you have more impact with your subculture in what you choose to surround yourself with than you realize. And that's why I've never chased down a Berkshire model to start talking to everybody about. I stay focused and I stay relevant with making sure that we adhere to what they want in Berkshire overall, but I stay focused on where we're relevant because our agents, man, they see us every day, not Warren Buffett. And I know at some point those become hoop dreams and they're unrelatable as far as financially. Who relates to Warren Buffett financially? But they relate to us and they've climbed this with us, which is where that camaraderie and that adversity come through, which means that's where we have impact and accountability every day, which then bleeds into people's families.
Right.
If your mind's right. So, man, it's a fun Friday. I think it's been a huge, fun topic. I think it's one that's needed. And it's one where I've had a lot of fun complimenting you when you don't want to compliment and you gracefully, say, hey, I just want to learn some shit from you, man. And like, fuck that, bro. Like, it's been fun to go, look, dude, maybe I'm more loud than you, but I really want to just highlight before we get off tonight. I really want to highlight, no matter how strong you think you are or how confident you think you are, how go-to, charge, face of the brand, whatever you think you are, look, man, like the team that you're putting yourself around and the guys that are in it with you, that are allowing you to make those kind of decisions, dude, they matter, And for you and I sitting at this table, I don't matter any more than you do. and like it's good for you to hear that because maybe you don't necessarily realize your impact of having more experience with civilians and being able to just bounce a couple of ideas. And you said something like, man, you're always, you said dwell, but then you said, man, you marinate on a lot. I do. So maybe you've only said 5 things to me this year. Like, or maybe I've only asked 5 or 8 things of advice from you all year. But if you look at that in my perspective, imagine how much I marinate on everything that you've ever said. Well, then you start looking at it, you're like, man, that's actually a lot. Well, it's a fuck ton. So you're subjective with giving compliments because you don't realize how much of an impact you've had on me to just make the decisions. You might say something to me when I ask for advice, but then I remember that for the next 3,500 decisions I make over 6 months.
Yeah,
but
likewise, man.
But you're not giving it credit,
Yeah.
right? So the biggest thing tonight, man, this podcast is just understanding the importance of team and just making sure that everyone is in a position to scale themselves in order for us all to be successful. Man. I think that's huge. And what a fun podcast, man.
Yeah.
What a really good podcast today.
Yeah. No, this
was
is
a
really
great topic.
good, man. Yeah.
I like it. Guys, happy Friday. We're going to have episode 8 coming at you super soon on Monday. Maybe we'll talk to Fat a little bit more. He's in a tank top today, all tatted up and sexy and quiet. But maybe we'll have him on soon and let him chat more.